Now in 20th century music history, this week we are going to do Expressionism, and the art is also very involved and very influential in this style of music. And here you see a painting that is maybe a painting that you know. It was in the news a few years ago because it was stolen from out of a national gallery in Oslo. And this is Edvard Munch, The Scream, and he was an expressionist painter. So I think you know the kind of music these composers composed. Expressionism in music, this is another term borrowed from painting. In this case from the expressionists working in Vienna, in Austria, in the early part of the century. In their vivid pictures, these painters expressed their innermost experiences and states of mind. And that was usually dark, the secret terrors they had, and fantastic visions of the subconscious, often suggesting mental breakdown. Expressionism in music began as an exaggeration, distortion even, of late Romanticism, in which composers poured the most intense emotional expressiveness into their music. Amongst those who wrote in expressionistic style were Arnold Schoenberg, who was also a painter, and his pupil Alban Berg and Anton Webern. These three, working in Vienna, became known as the Second Viennese School. So we had Schoenberg and his two students, Alban Berg and Anton Webern. In its early phase, expressionist music relied on harmonies which became increasingly chromatic, later resulting in atonality, that is a word that we know now, total rejection of the key or tonality. Expressionist music in atonal style is characterized by extremely dissonant harmonies, frenzied disjointed melodies including wild leaps and violent explosive contrasts with instruments often played harshly at the extremes of their ranges. So it's totally the opposite of impressionistic music. If you just look at the words that we see there, atonal, dissonant, frenzied, disjointed, wild leaps, violent, explosive contrast with instruments often played harshly at the extremes of their ranges. Expressionism was foreshadowed in Schoenberg's Verklärte Nacht, Transfigured Night for string sextet, that is for 6 stringed instruments, written in 1899. In 1908, he composed his second string quartet in which a soprano voice is included in the 3rd and 4th movements. It is in the 4th movement that Schoenberg totally abandons key, making the first venture into atonality. The soprano begins with the words, "I sense the air from another planet, I dissolve into sounds." So there it's very important that you look at all those key words of expressionistic music. Now let's sum up. The term expressionism was originally borrowed from visual art and literature. Artists created vivid pictures, distorting colors and shapes to make unrealistic images that just suggested strong emotions. Expressionist composers poured intense emotional expression into their music, exploring their subconscious mind. Now, the words we have done just now, expressionist music often features a high level of dissonance, extreme contrast of dynamics, constantly changing textures, distorted melodies and harmonies, angular melodies with wide leaps. There we see a picture of Arnold Schoenberg. He was born in Vienna in 1874. He was a professor of composition in Berlin and later Los Angeles. He was a gifted composer, teacher and painter. Schoenberg, together with 2 of his pupils, Berg and Webern, are known as the Second Viennese School. Okay, school here means a group of people whose work shares a common style. Schoenberg's first compositions were romantic in style. Okay. For instance, Transfigured Night, his style of composition later changed. His music became increasingly dissonant and chromatic in style of Expressionism. The sense of key became less and less obviously, eventually resulting in atonality. That we did last week. Audience and critics found Schoenberg's atonal music difficult to understand. So it becomes very intellectual, and there's nothing beautiful about it. It's about the subconscious and your fears and terrors. There was so much unrest at one concert that the police were called. Some years after the composition of 5 pieces for orchestra, Schoenberg evolved a new system to replace tonality in his music, and then he carried on with serialism. Now we're going to listen to a piece today called Peripety from the 5 orchestral pieces. I'm sure you'll hear a lot of the features of Expressionism when you listen to Schoenberg's composition. I like that definition there. The emotions of the music are taken to the extreme, leading to disturbing, unsettling, and sometimes violence. Let's listen to Alban Berg-Wozzeck, and that's his first opera. And you will hear all the features that we have discussed today. Very good conductor, Claudia Abado, and this is in the Vienna State Theatre. You will see it's a full hall, so everybody wants to look at this opera. And I don't know whether you will like this, but let's have a good look at expressionistic music.
Langsam, Wozzeck, langsam. Eins nach dem anderen. Macht mir ganz schwindlig. Was soll ich denn mit den 10 Minuten anfangen, die heute zu früh fertig sind? Wozzeck, bedenkt er hat noch seine schönen 30 Jahre zu leben. 30 Jahre macht 360 Monate und erst die Tage, Stunden, Minuten. Was will er denn mit der ungeheuren Zeit anfangen? Es ist ein Wozzeck.
Jawohl, Herr Hauptmann.
Es wird mir ganz Angst um die Welt, wenn ich an die Ewigkeit denk. Ewig, das ist ewig, das sieht er ein. Nun ist es aber wieder nicht ewig, sondern ein Augenblick. Ja, ein Augenblick. Wozzeck, es schaudert mich, wenn ich denke, dass sich die Welt in einem Tag herumdreht und kann ich auch kein Wort mehr sehen.
Oder ich werde melancholisch. Jawohl, Herr Hauptmann.
Wozzeck, wer sieht immer so verhetzt aus? Ein guter Mensch, das nicht. Ein guter Mensch, der sein gutes Gewissen hat. Tut alles langsam. Red er doch was, Wozzeck. Was ist heute für ein Wetter?
Sehr schlimm, Herr Hauptmann.
Ist mir schon
So that gives you a good idea